Hello, I'm Sarah. I'm a Conservator here at State Archives.
And I'm Peter. I'm a Gomeroi Murray from northwest New South Wales, and I work at the museum in the First Nations space.
So today we're going to be looking at the significance of this really interesting object before us.
And I think for these important objects, what they mean to understanding a place and the different meanings to different people and how it impacts them. And we'll be really delving into that. So, Sarah, what are we looking at here?
So this is a large document that was created almost 200 years ago in 1825 for Governor Darling, the 7th Governor of New South Wales. This is his commission, and it outlines his instructions for what he was to do when he arrived and gives him his power and authority to be in charge of the colony of New South Wales. He would often have exercised that power from Government House, making decisions that affected people all over the colony. Today the document's stored here at the archives because it's a very important document and we can care for it. But it's really important that it's available for people to see, like today. Please come and have a look.
So how was it made and who actually made it?
So it's not actually paper, it's parchment, and it's made from animal skin, most likely from a sheep or a goat or a cow. The skin would have been stripped of any hair, washed, soaked in lime water, and then stretched out on a frame. The stretched skin was then scraped over with a knife to make it smooth enough to write on. When the parchment was ready, the shape of a rectangle would have been cut out for use, and that's what you're looking at here. So this is a kangaroo parchment. What's interesting with this one is you can actually see the backbone of the animal, and you can see the scars on that would have been the skin. And you can see how different it is though, hear that sound. It sounds like paper, but it's actually skin. After it was made, different artists and craftsmen spent time decorating it, and when you look at the document, you can see lots of creative elements, such as this, the fancy writing and the decorative border, different symbols, and a portrait. The portrait is of King George IV and would have been originally drawn by an artist, one that was very good at representing faces. The fact that the King's face is on this document tells us that it is important and that the Governor had been given his powers by the King of England. The portrait would have then been engraved by an engraver who also created the decorative patterns that go around the document's border. The decoration tells us that a lot of effort was put into this document because it was considered to be very important at the time it was made. Putting those decorations and the portrait onto this parchment would have been done by a printer using a printing press. The printer would set up the press with all the engraved plates, the portrait, the decorative elements, and then would lay down the ink and use the press to squash the parchment down onto the wet plates. When they peeled it off, it would have had all the patterns and images transferred onto it. The final step was to write all those words on it, and that was a job for a scribe. A scribe was someone who had neat handwriting, could spell, had a lot of practice in using a quill and ink, and would have needed to have a lot of patience too.
So do you think the scribe had a pen licence, Sarah?
I reckon they probably did.
So Sarah, what do all these words actually say?
These words are his instructions. They tell the Governor what he had to do when he arrived. One particular instruction was to expand the border of the colony out to what is the present-day border of Western Australia. So New South Wales was very different to what it is today. It encompassed a huge percentage of the continent.
And I think that's one of the really important points to actually think about when you're actually looking at these colonial documents. So this is a document that was giving or instructing Darling to expand that border right out to Western Australia, but there was no consideration of the hundreds of actually First Nations people living on these lands and what that actually direction would have meant to them.
So Peter, can you help us understand what this document isn't telling us?
Well, this document is about land and expanding that border. And I think what it doesn't actually consider is the impacts that it had on people that were living on that country for thousands and thousands of years, or for what they think, forever. And with that is their obligations to the looking after that country, to actually being part of that country, and the impact of that when you're actually not even considered to be there. And that's the notion of Terra Nullius.
So Peter, how does looking at an archival document such as this from different perspectives actually contribute to reconciliation?
Well, this document is a really important historical document. And I think to understand the past, you need to be able to ask really fundamental questions about what does it mean to other people? What was the original intent? And really educate yourself about different perspectives of these documents. And I think the outcome of that is it actually makes you a better person in terms of what you actually open yourself up to, understanding and feeling and knowing what other things mean to other people. And that's true reconciliation, I think.